At 80 degrees below zero, exposed skin freezes in 30 seconds. Breath crystallizes before it leaves your lungs. Metal becomes brittle enough to shatter. A dog team running into a whiteout blizzard at those temperatures should turn back or die trying. This is Nome, Alaska, January 1925. Population, 1,400 souls clinging to the edge of the Bering Sea. The nearest doctor is Curtis Welch, and he's watching children die from diphtheria faster than he can count. The gray membranes spreading across their throats. The desperate gasping for air that doesn't come. 20 more showing symptoms. Without antitoxin serum, the entire town could be gone within a week.
Still, let me see. I'm running out of time.
The serum exists. It's in Nenana, 674 miles away across the most brutal terrain in North America. In summer, a ship could make the delivery, but the sea is frozen solid. The only airplane in Alaska is grounded, too cold to fly, which leaves one option, one impossible, desperate option. 20 mushers, 150 sled dogs, 674 miles of the Iditarod Trail in the dead of an Arctic winter. A relay race against death itself, carrying 20 pounds of frozen serum through temperatures that kill. The mushers called it the Great Race of Mercy. History would call it the most famous dog sled run in the world. And at the heart of it, running the final 53 miles through the worst blizzard anyone had seen, was a black and white husky that no one thought was good enough. January 20th, Gunnar Kassen's kennels on the outskirts of Nome. 20 dogs chain-staked in the snow, barking at the weak winter sun that barely cleared the horizon. Steam rose from their breath in thick clouds. They lived to run. The Iditarod Trail was in their blood, passed down through generations of Siberian huskies bred for one purpose: survive the impossible. Balto sat apart from the others, smaller than the racing champions. His bloodline mixed, half Siberian, half Malamute, a scrapper built for endurance over speed. The elite dogs ignored him. To them, he was third string, a backup for the backups.
You'll never lead a championship team, Balto. Look at you. Too small for freight, too slow for racing.
Fox was his wheel dog, ran directly in front of the sled for 8 years, cynical and scarred. He'd seen dogs on the trail, seen them freeze mid-run, hearts giving out from the strain. He had no patience for dreamers. But Balto didn't dream of championships. He dreamed of proving that heart mattered more than pedigree, that being chosen mattered more than being fast. The radio transmission came through on January 22nd at 0900 hours. Dr. Welch's voice crackling over the static, transmitted from Nome to Nenana, and then broadcast across every station in Alaska.
Diphtheria outbreak confirmed. 43 showing symptoms. The children are sick. We need antitoxin serum immediately or we lose the entire town.
The response was immediate. Governor Bone organized the relay within 6 hours. 20 mushers, the best dog drivers in Alaska, each taking a leg of the trail. The serum would travel by train from Anchorage to Nenana, then hand to hand across the frozen wilderness. One musher to the next, no stopping, no rest. The children didn't have time. Leonard Seppala, the greatest musher in Alaska, volunteered for the longest leg. 91 miles across Norton Sound with his lead dog Togo, a 12-year-old Siberian legend. The kind of dog Balto watched from a distance, knowing he'd never measure up. But someone had to run the final leg. 53 miles from Bluff to Nome, through the most exposed stretch of trail. And a storm was building over the Bering Sea, the kind that turned the world white and erased everything. The racing champions pressed against their chains, eager to be chosen. Rex, fastest sprinter in the territory. Brandy won the All-Alaska Sweepstakes 3 years running. These were dogs built for glory. He stopped in front of Balto, studied the husky's dark eyes, the compact frame, the scars on his pads from running freight when no one else would take him.
I don't need the fastest.
Balto's ears
I
went
need the
forward.
one.
He'd heard those words before, in his head, in his dreams, but never out loud, never from a musher who mattered.
You're my lead dog, Balto. We take the serum from Bluff. If we make it through, those
If.
children live.
The word hung in the frozen air like a warning. January 31st, Bluff Checkpoint, 2 a.m. Temperature 78 below zero. Wind chill pushing it past 90. The kind of cold that made your teeth ache just breathing. The relay was working. Against impossible odds, the mushers were making time. Sapala and Togo had covered their 91 miles in brutal conditions, crossing Norton Sound on ice that cracked beneath the sled. The serum had passed through 19 sets of hands, 19 teams that refused to fail. Musher Charlie Olson handed the serum cylinder to Gunner, 20 pounds wrapped in fur, still frozen solid. Inside, 300,000 units of diphtheria antitoxin, enough to save Nome, if it arrived in time, if it didn't freeze and crack, if the storm held off.
Thank you, Charlie. Godspeed.
Weather's turning. Radio says a blizzard's moving in from the west. Big one.
How big? How big? A full-grown growlar?
The kind you don't run into. The kind you wait out.
Gunner looked at the serum, then at the sky, then at his team of 13 dogs, with Balto in the lead position, eyes forward, muscles coiled, waiting for the command.
Those children can't wait.
Gunner secured the
run.
serum to the sled,
We run.
checked the gangline connections, pulled his parka hood tight against the wind that was already picking up, sharp and cutting, carrying ice crystals that stung exposed skin. Balto felt the weight shift as Gunnar stepped onto the runners, felt the tension in the tow line. 13 dogs behind him waiting for his lead. 53 miles ahead through country he'd run a dozen times in daylight, but never in a storm. Never with lives depending on it.
Balto, that wind. You smell that? The storm's coming faster than they think.
Balto could smell it, metallic, electric, the scent of a blizzard building over the frozen sea.
Hike! Hike it! Don't!
The sled lurched forward. Balto threw his weight into the harness, paws finding purchase on the packed trail. Behind him, 12 dogs fell into rhythm. The sled runners hissed across the snow. They were moving. 3 a.m., 48 miles from Nome. The sky to the west was turning dark. Not the darkness of night, but the darkness of something massive rolling toward them. The temperature was dropping. The wind was rising. And Balto was leading his team straight into the worst blizzard in a decade. 4 a.m., 15 miles out of Bluff. The wind hit them like a fist. One moment, the trail was visible, a pale ribbon cutting through the darkness, marked by tripods every quarter mile. The next moment, nothing. The blizzard descended like a curtain dropping, and everything disappeared into white. Visibility dropped to 0 in seconds. The wind screamed across the tundra at 60 miles per hour, driving ice crystals horizontal. The temperature plunged to 85 below. At those temperatures, with that wind, flesh freezes in under a minute. Balto couldn't see the dog running 3 feet behind him, couldn't see Gunner on the sled, couldn't see the trail. The world had become nothing but white noise and wind and the brutal certainty that stopping meant dying. The trail markers vanished first. The tripods that guided mushers through the flats simply weren't there anymore. Buried in drifting snow or invisible beyond 5 feet, it didn't matter. The result was the same. Balto kept moving forward because forward was the only direction that made sense. His paws found the packed trail by feel, the hard surface beneath the fresh powder, worn smooth by generations of dog teams. As long as he could feel that hard pack, they were still on course.
Balto, we need to stop. We can't see. We don't know where we're going.
His voice barely carried over the wind, but Balto heard the fear in it, the same fear clawing at his own chest. Gunnar's commands had stopped 5 minutes ago. Balto glanced back, just a quick turn of his head, and saw the musher hunched on the sled runners, one hand gripping the handlebar, the other tucked inside his parka. Ice had formed on Gunnar's beard, on his eyebrows. He was freezing to the sled. Balto had feared his entire life. The moment when being chosen meant being alone, with a choice that mattered. Gunnar couldn't guide him. The trail was gone. The markers were buried. Everything he'd relied on, every rule, every command, every familiar landmark, had been erased by the storm. And 43 children in Nome were running out of time. 6 a.m. They'd been running in whiteout conditions for 2 hours. Balto's paws were bleeding. Ice had formed between his pads, cutting with every step. His lungs burned from breathing air so cold it felt like swallowing broken glass. The muscles in his shoulders screamed from pulling the sled through drifts that fought back with every foot.
We're lost, Balto. Admit it. We're lost and we're dying and those kids are already... Stop, please, before we all freeze.
X wasn't wrong. They could be miles off course. Running in circles, the storm had turned the landscape into a blank page where everything looked the same. No sky, no ground, just white. Balto's paws hit something wrong, not the packed trail. Soft snow, deep snow. He stopped. The silence was worse than the wind. In that moment of stillness, Balto felt the truth settling into his bones. He'd lost the trail. Somewhere in the white chaos, he drifted off course, and without the trail, they had no way home. This is what the blizzard does. It doesn't just hide the path. It erases your certainty, makes you doubt everything you thought you knew, whispers that you're not good enough, never were, and trying will only get everyone killed. Balto stood in the harness, ice forming on his coat, and felt the lie he'd carried his whole life pressing down like the weight of the storm. You're not a lead dog. You're not strong enough. You're going to fail and everyone will know. Then, something shifted. Balto closed his eyes against the wind, ignored what he could see, which was nothing, and focused on what he could feel. The smell. Beneath the ice and wind, there was a scent. Faint, almost imagined, but there. Wood smoke, seal oil lamps, the smell of human habitation carried on the storm. Nome was ahead, somewhere in the white.
There it is, we're almost there.
We keep moving.
You can't even see the trail.
I don't need to see it. I know it.
Balto leaned into the harness, felt for the slope beneath the snow, the subtle grade that marked the trail's shoulder, found it, adjusted his angle, took one step forward, then another.
Keep going, we're almost there. Come on, boys.
7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. The world stayed white. The wind never stopped. Balto navigated by scent and memory and the angle of the wind on his face. Sometimes he felt the packed trail under his paws. Sometimes he didn't. He kept moving. Gunnar was unconscious now. Frozen to the sled, hands locked on the handlebar, body slumped forward. The serum cylinder sat wrapped in fur behind him, still intact, still frozen, still carrying the hope of 43 children who'd never met this dog, running through hell to save them. 10 a.m. Balto's front paw punched through a drift and hit ice beneath. Solid ice. He stopped, tested the surface. Not trail, a frozen creek. They drifted west. "11 a.m. 17 hours since they'd left Bluff. The storm showed no signs of breaking. The whole team ran in silence now, beyond exhaustion, beyond cold, running on something deeper than muscle or will. And then, light. 12:30 p.m. The wind dropped, just slightly, just enough that the wall of white became translucent. Balto saw shapes, dark forms against the pale sky. Trees. He was seeing trees. Balto crested a rise and stopped. The team stopped behind him, and for the first time in 9 hours, they could see. 5 miles. That was all. 5 miles of trail that Balto could run in his sleep on a good day. The final ridge stood between them and Nome, the wind-scoured ice slope where the trail climbed 200 feet before dropping into the valley. The place where tired dogs sometimes lost their footing, where sleds tipped and broke, where the careful and the lucky made it through, and the desperate didn't. Balto looked at his team. 13 dogs who'd run through hell because he'd asked them to. 13 dogs standing on bleeding paws with frost on their muzzles and ice in their fur. Balto turned toward the ridge, leaned into the harness one more time, felt the tow line go taut behind him. 1 p.m. February 2nd, 1925. The Ridge. The first switchback was the worst. The sled slid sideways on the ice, pulling the team off balance. Balto dug in, claws scraping for purchase, shoulders burning as he hauled the weight uphill. Behind him, 12 dogs did the same, straining, bleeding, refusing to quit. Fox's breathing came in ragged gasps. His front left paw was shredded. Ice had cut through the pad down to muscle. Every step left a crimson smear on the white trail, but he kept pulling. 50 feet up, the wind hit them again. Not the full fury of the blizzard, but strong enough to rock the sled, strong enough to make Balto brace his legs to stay upright. The serum cylinder shifted behind Gunner. For one terrible second, Balto thought it would slide free, tumble down the slope, shatter on the ice below. 100 feet. Halfway. The team was moving slower now, not because they wanted to, because their bodies were shutting down. Hypothermia, exhaustion, blood loss. The biological limits that separate the possible from the suicidal. Balto felt his vision tunneling, the edges going dark. His paws were numb. He couldn't feel them anymore, just moved them by memory. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm that had carried him through 17 hours of storm. 150 feet, 3/4 up. And Balto understood something in that moment, something that would have sounded like weakness before the storm, but felt like truth on this ridge. He'd spent his whole life comparing himself to dogs like Togo, legendary sled dogs who made impossible runs look easy, who never seemed to doubt, never seemed to hurt. 175 feet, almost there. The top of the ridge visible 20 feet above. Beyond it, Nome. The clinic, Dr. Welch. The children whose names Balto didn't know, but whose lives he carried. Balto's right front paw slipped. He went down to one knee on the ice. The team bunched up behind him, sled sliding backwards 6 inches before Fox braced and held it.
Not here. Not this close.
He stood. one paw at a time, weight shifting, balance finding, and then he pulled, one last time, with everything left. 2 p.m. They crested the ridge. Nome spread below them in the valley. 500 yards of downhill trail, smoke rising from 100 chimneys. The clinic visible on Main Street, white building with a red cross painted on the wall. Dr. Welch's radio antenna catching the afternoon light. From the ridge, Balto could see people. Tiny figures moving through the streets. They didn't know yet. Didn't know that the serum was 500 yards away, that the impossible relay had worked, that 20 mushers and 150 dogs had covered 674 miles in 5.5 days through conditions that should have killed them all. Balto started down the slope, faster now, gravity helping, the sled runners hissing on the packed trail, the team falling into a ragged trot, not fast, not graceful, but moving. 400 yards, 300 yards, 200 yards, 100 yards. Balto could see faces now, a woman crying, a man waving his arms, children, healthy children not yet sick, pointing at the sled. 50 yards. Balto's legs were giving out. He could feel it happening. Muscles that had nothing left pushed past every limit. But 50 yards? That was nothing. That was the length of Gunner's kennel yard. 5:30 a.m., February 2nd, 1925. Balto stopped in front of Dr. Welch's clinic. The team stopped behind him, and for the first time in 17 hours, they were done. Gunner didn't move, couldn't move. 3 men had to pry his frozen hands from the handlebar, had to carry him inside while his legs, still locked in running position, slowly thawed. But the serum was intact. Dr. Welch's hands shook as he unwrapped the cylinder from its fur covering. The glass vials inside, still frozen, still sealed. 300,000 units of diphtheria antitoxin.
Okay, just a little poke, child.
The medicine is coming.
Now breathe
He
deep.
worked
The
for an
antitoxin is
hour,
working, dear one.
warming
You'll
the
be all
serum
right now.
gradually, testing it, preparing the first doses, and then he started administering it, one child at a time. The gray membrane in their throats, the desperate, rattling breathing. By sunset on February 3rd, the outbreak was contained. 43 children treated. The death toll stopped at 7. The town that should have been wiped out survived. Because 20 mushers refused to accept impossible. Because 150 sled dogs ran until they had nothing left. And because one black and white husky, who'd spent his whole life being told he wasn't good enough, proved that heart matters more than pedigree. Balto spent 3 days in Gunner's kennel recovering. Paws bandaged, muscles too sore to stand. Fox in the stall next to him, also wrapped in bandages, also alive against the odds. The newspapers picked up the story within a week. Balto's race against death. The husky who saved Nome became a legend overnight. Statues were commissioned, children's books written. A nation recovering from war and hardship found hope in a dog who refused to quit. But the real story, the one that mattered, wasn't about fame or statues or headlines. It was about 43 children who grew up, who had families, who lived lives they wouldn't have had if a scrappy, self-doubting sled dog hadn't decided that protecting what you love matters more than protecting yourself. Balto lived another 8 years, retired from sledding, but never forgotten. When he died in 1933 at the age of 14, the entire town of Nome shut down for his funeral. They buried him with honors, with respect, with the gratitude of a town that owed him everything. But if Balto could have chosen his own epitaph, it would have been simpler. Because in the end, that's what love costs. Everything you have, every step when your body says stop, every mile when the storm says turn back, every moment when doubt whispers you're not enough. At 80 degrees below zero, a dog team running into a whiteout blizzard should turn back or die trying.